Good evening, Blue Jays fans. Welcome on into Jaybird Watching. Earlier in the week than normal, earlier in the day than normal, a special edition episode to get the Buffalo Bills fan on this podcast, Craig Borden, out in time for the early Monday Night Football kickoff at 7:15. But before we do that, we're going to level set. We're going to talk about the past week that was in Toronto Blue Jays baseball with Craig Borden and Tyson Sushkovich. Did I pronounce that right? Was that close?
Not even close, but I appreciate
it. Do your shameless promoting of your own name right now.
A couple times. So correct me on the correct pronunciation, but I'll just call you Tyson.
that works for me. Yeah, that works for me.
How are you doing, gentlemen?
We strive for professionalism here.
Yes, exactly. How are the both of you doing on this Monday early evening?
It's an off day. It's weird.
I know.
It's a weird Monday off day.
Yeah, what do we do now? It's like, okay, good. There is football tonight, so I got that covered. But to that point, it does feel weird not having Blue Jay baseball on a Monday night. But
yeah, well, looking ahead, I mean, the next off day, I guess the last off day of the regular season is next week Thursday, and there's football on Thursday night. So
there you go.
You are covered all the way through until the wild card round starts, and off between the last day of the regular season at Baltimore and the Friday of wild card weekend. There will be another football game to fill the calendar. So we are set, gentlemen, with football being on. But hey, this is a baseball podcast, and the Blue Jays just came off a very successful week against their American League East rivals. Craig, I know you talked about it last week with Ian Hunter and Chris Henderson, but the Blue Jays did take 3 out of 5 from the Tampa Bay Rays, and then this past weekend they took 2 out of 3 from the Baltimore Orioles. Overall, a very, very successful homestand. Unfortunately, the way yesterday ended didn't put the exclamation point on it, and in my mind, all but virtually eliminate the Baltimore Orioles from playoff contention. We can debate on if they already are or not, but let's start with you, Tyson. Over the past several games against the Rays and the Tampa Bay, or the Rays and the Baltimore Orioles, was there anything particular that really stood out to you during that homestand? It can be anything you want, anything that comes to mind first. Relief pitching, starting pitching, offense, big moments, something that signifies to you that this team is all but ready to start wrapping up their spot in the postseason.
Well, I think first and foremost, right, you got to look at Bo Bichette and how he's doing, right? Like, you know, he had such a slow start to the year compared to what we saw from him last year. And then in this past month, he's just ramped it up, and it's making such a difference on this field, especially with Gurriel Jr. being out too. I think with him being out, Bo Bichette kind of stepped up to the plate and went further than many would expect, because he's hitting multi-hit home run games. He's getting on base. He's hitting those clutch things. I think another big thing too was that doubleheader against Tampa, right? Looking back. The doubleheader against Tampa and then that West Coast swing, that's what led to Montoyo getting fired, right? Because they went into that slump, and I think if I remember correctly, they took one and they lost one, but and then they had the multiple bullpen days and no reliable like fifth starter, if you will, and then you have Mitch White also come out and pitch this great relief outing that he had, his longest outing as a Blue Jay, after an opener, and it's just the little things that are starting to click. And I think that's going to be a big indicator for a team that is looking for postseason baseball, because it's, you can always focus on certain things. Starting pitching has to be fantastic, and the bullpen has to be great, because, starting pitching in the playoffs, they don't like to go against the team the third time unless you're really rolling. And I think the Blue Jays have that more refined bullpen than what we, came in starting with this year, and especially compared to last year. So definitely, a couple of key, like I said, Bo Bichette, the coming out of the week with the doubleheader, and then also just everything starting to kind of come into shape. Vladdy's hitting the ball a little higher now. He had that, I don't want to call it a moonshot, but he had that. He had that non-line drive home run, which is nice to see, and everyone's contributing. Matt Chapman too. Like I said, everything's clicking, and that's good.
Yes, that's very good recap. Craig, what has stood out to you the last several games against the American League East rivals?
I'm kind of in that ballpark, Brendan, where you were steering the conversation a minute ago. I think we damn near close put the Baltimore Orioles back in their place. They're not completely dead yet, technically, but we've made it really, really difficult with them. And the only reason I can't say we're dead on that whole thing is the fact that we have to play them specifically so much as we do for the next few weeks. And us being ahead of them, the Rays being ahead of them, they're playing all the teams that are technically, in the mix. So can't count them out completely, but they're not, it's going to be very difficult. It's even worse than where we were sitting at this time last year. And just missing it by one game, they're going to have to do everything right for the next few weeks to be able to get something proper to happen and rely on the fact that the other teams are falling by the wayside. It was honestly, the thing that stuck out to me the most over the last week is the fact is they took the Rays to school. This didn't look like the lopsided Jays versus Rays issues that we've been seeing over the last few years. It actually felt like there was some normalcy. This was an actual competitive ball game. We didn't have the, back and forth nonsense that we always see when we're in the Trop, for example.
Yeah.
And they took them to the brink on each of those games, especially the close one. Yeah, we didn't finish that series out maybe the way we wanted to with Baltimore yesterday, but the Rays games were in our hands and they did what they needed to do. And that encourages me exponentially for going into this week when we're going to play the Rays again in the Trop. So I thought that Shane McClanahan game was very telling to where things could be going. They were able to stay in that game against somebody like him. Yes, he was bouncing back from a, IL stint, but I never thought in a million years he was going to come out and look bad. He was Shane McClanahan all day, every day for that start, and they were able to do their job. So very intriguing, regardless of what happened with how the Orioles series here finished. That their Rays series was the tell-all, I think, for how they are going to perform for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Both of you summed it up really well. I think the thing that stood out to me over the last couple of series that really starts to signify that this team can do some damage when they get into the postseason is hitting the opposing team's high leverage relievers. They put a lot of pressure on Felix Bautista yesterday and almost came back and won the game and picked up Jordan Romano, and then hitting Jason Adam a little bit against the Tampa Bay Rays. And
he's got to hate us by now.
Yeah.
Bad enough for us letting them go, and then second for let's just beat them up afterwards. Why not?
But yeah, once you get into the postseason, every team that's in there usually has good bullpens, and you're going to have to hit high velocity and high leverage spots. And the fact that they're starting to do that with a little bit more frequency and put pressure on the opposing team's bullpens is a good sign to me. Now, that being said, they did not put the finishing touches on that. So let's expand on the Orioles series a little bit. They did blow yesterday, but they won a bullpen game on Friday, which was shocking, I think, to us all. And then Jose Barrios continued. You know what? Still, a lot of hard contact gives up. Not nearly as many strikeouts as we're used to seeing from Barrios, but he still is getting the job done over the last 5 to 6 starts. The Orioles leave town 6 back instead of 8 back with the Blue Jays coughing up yesterday. There's only 15 games left for the Blue Jays. I think the Orioles have 1 or 2 more in hand on them. The stat that I saw, Craig, was that if the Blue Jays just play 500 baseball the rest of the way, the Orioles would have to go 16-2 just to tie. And that seems pretty.
Just damn near close to it. I said damn near close.
What I'm saying is every win the Blue Jays rack up from here on out, whether it's taking one tomorrow night against Philly or taking both against Philly, just puts more and more pressure on the Orioles and hopefully makes that final series of the year at Baltimore completely meaningless, where you can begin to line up your rotation and maybe give some guys some days off heading into the playoffs.
Kikuchi gets a start in that time,
100%.
Yeah, pitch a jab.
He's going to have to get one at some point here.
Exactly. But Craig, do you think that 6 games back with 15 left for the Blue Jays and 1 or 2 extra for the Orioles is the nail in the coffin at this point? Because there's still a very glimmer of hope. They had to have that game yesterday, the Orioles, and they did. But as I just said, they basically have to not lose again.
Lids shut. You got most of the nails in, but there's a couple there about like that far out. They haven't been drove all the way down yet. But I think the Blue Jays are in better standing. I'd be worried about, the those few extra games might be the difference between the Rays and the Mariners actually having to deal with it. And to that point, to what you just said, Brendan, the more wins they can rack up here makes it that hard for even those two teams to keep coming toward the what would be solidifying a Blue Jay home field advantage for those wild card games. And to me, that's getting more and more critical every goddamn day. The other fun part about this is we're 5.5 technically out of the division still.
Yep, still.
That conversation hasn't gone away yet either. And the Yankees, I'm sorry to say that they're running on Josh Donaldson having a little bit of a resurgent week this last week, and still Aaron Judge. So this whole thing right now with the wild card is all the spots are open. The division's still not out of the reality. Somebody's going to get hot here in this equation out of those 4 teams. And I'm not saying that's the Orioles, so I'll cool you Jets. To that point, one of those teams is going to get hot and I think ride to the division and into the first round of the playoffs. I can't say that's the Yankees right now. Right now, we're probably the hottest team out of all of those. And the Rays are just in that section back, but the Mariners have even taken a step back over the last few weeks. So it's going to be an interesting way to finish it over those last 15 games, like you said, Brennan.
Exactly. Tyson, is the coffin shut or all the nails in, as Craig said, or is there a couple that are still?
I don't want to say that because as soon as you say that, all of a sudden bad things happen.
I know.
And then Gunnar Henderson
like
hits the cycle, and they figure out ways. Yeah, I don't know, because when you I try to take the approach of like you can only control what you control, right? So if the Blue Jays go in and do their thing, right? Kind of what back to Craig said, it's like focus on winning the division, right? It's not mathematically impossible, but you still have to face the Yankees. The Yankees, everyone's kind of still got to go through the division, and if the Blue Jays can continue winning games and try for that, then you kind of, in the retrospect, all of a sudden the Orioles don't have a chance, right? Or the Blue Jays don't have to worry about it, but maybe Tampa goes on a skid, they have to worry about it, right? Like it's more of the equation of the Blue Jays just need to take care of their business, and then everything else will fall into place because, the Orioles, silly to say, they're every team in the AL East, kind of besides the Boston Red Sox, they can go on a bit of a streak here,
for
right?
Sure.
And especially with all of the American League East still having to face each other, it's always one of those like, yes, they got the Blue Jays could go 8-8, and the Orioles had to have this great run, but it's like, is it possible? Maybe not, but it's not impossible enough that you want to put the nail in the coffin, because then as soon as you do that, because even if they go to Baltimore and the wild card, Orioles are out of it, but the wild card race is down to a game and a half and 2 games like we've seen all season, do you want to sit Manoah because you want to have him in the first game? Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, yeah, totally, maybe. But then also at the same time, the conversation could be, do you want to have Manoah pitching at the Rogers Center, or do you want Kevin Gausman pitching on the, you know what I mean? And then I think that'll be kind of, take care of this week. And then I think after this week, especially if the Orioles lose a few and the Blue Jays win a few, then it's like, okay, now you don't have to worry about them catching up. And then you can kind of take the approach of, okay, now now let's go get the division so we get the bye. Let's keep going, because if they pass the Yankees, there's no one in the AL Central's catching, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too. Is right now, let's say and this is honestly why, to your point, we got to go for the division. You get that first round bye, and right now it would be playing the Guardians or one of the wild card teams.
Yeah,
so in that first round,
6,
instead
right?
of playing Houston in that second round. So that'd be
a big difference.
Big difference.
Absolutely. The Orioles, just to put a bow on their schedule, they start a series tonight with the Tigers for 3 games at Baltimore. Then they welcome Houston to town, and Houston's going to want to start wrapping up the number 1 overall seed. So maybe that is where hopefully it starts to unravel.
Just slam them.
Orioles, exactly. Maybe by the time you guys record next week, the nails will be firmly shut on the Orioles with only a couple of games to go. And then they are at Boston for 4. Boston's still good enough to take a game or 2 there.
They've been sneaky better lately, too.
They have. They've come up with some big wins against the Yankees and other teams. Baltimore goes to
2-3-4, man.
Exactly.
2-3-4 is so dangerous.
100%. So it's close. It's close.
And just to be this guy, Alex Verdugo does a hell of a sneaky game at post-game interview. If you haven't seen that clip with him interviewing JD Martinez after one of the games, I would highly recommend finding that on the Cut 4 website. It was very amusing. He literally takes the microphone slowly from the guy that does the after game interviews and just full on takes it over.
That's awesome.
Yes. Looking back at Saturday, knowing that we've already kind of talked about Sunday, going backwards, I guess. Barrios out, throws 6 innings, gives up 7 hits, still a lot of loud contact, only strikes out 3 and walks 2. He's finally gotten his ERA for the season under 5 again, right at 4.99. I know
beat me to it.
The beyond
all excited.
4.99. Since August the 18th, Barrios has not given up more than 4 earned runs in a start, and the Blue Jays typically win those games. Actually, they've won all games since that August the 18th start at Yankee Stadium. I know we talk about this seemingly every show the last couple of weeks. Tyson has Jose Barrios pitched his way back into starting in a potential wildcard series over Ross Stripling. And look, that's going to be a weekly thing that we debate as each turn goes through the rotation. I don't think there's a solidified answer yet, because to me, I've made my stance clear. It would be very hard to not start a guy you just gave a 7-year contract extension to at 142 or whatever $1 million it was. But on performance alone, Ross Stripling is the very easy answer. So with another turn through the rotation of Barrios being okay, not dominant, and Ross Stripling being quite dominant and channeling 2015 Marco Estrada, where are you going with the third starter spot behind Kevin Gausman and Alek Manoah?
See, for me personally, I've always been on the Jose Barrios starting train. Even though he has been inconsistent this season and he has given up his fair share of hits. The reason I've always been kind of on, Jose Barrios starting, for 100% the contract extension, this is why you extended him for this reason. But another reason too is I think if, let's say hypothetically, you go to a game 3, right, and you need to have your third starter going. We've seen lately from the past couple seasons, the past couple postseasons, starters not going into deep as games, right? And I think the best punch, the 1-2 punch the Blue Jays could do is Jose Barrios first and Ross Stripling second, because Ross Stripling's been that swingman before, right? And he's having a fantastic season, right? But if you were to look at his, how deep he goes into a game compared to the rest of the Blue Jays starters, it's not as far, right? And whether or not that's because of his previous swingman role, whether or not that's, this, that, and the other, or his pitch count gets too high, who knows, right? Yes, he's been great, but here's the thing. If Jose Barrios can do what he did, Saturday or these past couple starts that he's had, he's given up the contact a little bit. He's gotten a few strikeouts, but he's limited to damage, but still going 5-6 innings. You follow that with 1 to 3 innings of Ross Stripling, and then you can have Jimmy Garcia, and Jordan Romano come out. Like you pretty much, you're sending the best game 3 lineup you can, other than bringing like Alek Manoah out in the 8th because you're a little afraid, kind of thing. Like almost like a Chris Sale in the World Series. Like it's,
wow.
I think Jose Barrios wouldn't do so well coming out of the pen. And I think with how far starters go into games, it would be more advantageous to have Ross Stripling come out of the pen if required, right? Or even if you want to, put it on ice, right? Because Ross Stripling's been having a great year, and it kind of goes back to that scene of, if the Blue Jays are winning towards the end of the season and they got, let's say they got the first AL wildcard spot locked down, I'd put Ross Stripling out there for as a force, like in the 4th, 5th inning, because then it's like, okay, this is, you might be tipping your hand a little bit, but I would think a lot of teams already kind of have a gauge of what's going to happen. But I think with Ross Stripling's experience coming out as the swingman, and with Jose Barrios, you might get opening day, and that's the risk you take. But you also might get this, this version that's been pitching well lately, and you would kind of hopefully roll with the momentum. And maybe, in a week's time, I could be like, no, because he just went out and, gave up 5 earned in 2 innings, right? But
so
I think right
to
now,
your no comment, I think his start was the one the other day, personally, because to Brendan's point, the hard contact was back. He wasn't striking out as many. It just happened to go to gloves that game versus where we see the horrible games that he does have that random start. They find gaps, they find over the fences. The Orioles weren't able to take capitalize on him having an off day was my assumption the other day watching that. But you guys see it. I think I even said it to you a few weeks ago, Brendan, is he has a few great starts where he looks like an ace and then he throws up right in the middle of it.
He's got like 15 or
4.99 ERA.
Yeah, it's wild. It's very
just
Jekyll.
So, I was in Milwaukee when he had that 8-run inning or the 8-run game there, and it was like, whoa. And then you're like, and then you see him go out there and do 13 strikeouts through 6 instead of franchise record, and you're like,
yeah, I know.
What the hell was that?
I don't. Yeah, but you know what? It's just been his season. That's just how it's been.
We've said this all year. It's I think he's probably the most frustrating pitcher in maybe all of baseball. Definitely the most frustrating Blue Jays pitcher, because there really is nothing on the surface level or the advanced level statistics that really can tip why this is happening to a guy who's been so consistent throughout his whole career. I'm hoping that by the time next season comes around, he figures it back out and he's back to what he was when we traded for him and his Minnesota Twin days. But it's going to be probably a debate that we have again.
Twins fans and Red Wings fans, where I am, where we saw him coming up through the minor league systems in here, and tell you this will be the roller coaster you will get from Jose Barrios your whole existence of dealing with him.
At least next 5 years.
Up until this year, there's been more good than there has been these awfuls. So, and I think a lot of it is to that point of where I was going a minute ago, that when he's having his off days and he doesn't have all of his stuff, it's so dependent on how good a luck he has. And this year has been all the bad luck on those days. Yeah. So
very true.
I hope he goes into this off season. I think some of it's his conditioning and whatnot, and like some of that space between the years thing to a point. I think he's going to figure out how to take that next step, knowing he's got that big contract on him and being in the Blue Jays system for sure going forward. He's going to do everything he needs to. Maybe he hangs out in Dunedin a little longer, those kind of things.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I think
he can this offseason.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. He can this offseason. I wonder for somebody like him that is a creature of habit and very into his routine, how much having that, the lockout and everything really screw with his up front. That is a great point to where you were going there, Tyson. I think he can actually have an off season and not sit at home. Maybe those couple extra days on the couch having a few beers, was just the difference.
Moving on to the last game against the Rays as we wrap up this past homestand, Kevin Gausman, for the second straight start in a row, gave up 5 earned runs, 2 home runs, still racking up the strikeouts quite easily, as Kevin Gausman tends to do. But a little bit more recently, you're starting to see either signs of him tiring a little bit or being burned by the shift. He's one of the pitchers that has been burnt by the shift the most all season in baseball, where he just level. Yeah, it's also very unlucky for Kevin Gausman in a different way compared to Jose Barrios this season. But Craig, 2 starts in a row now, went 7 against the Rays on Thursday, but 5 earned runs, and then it just completely unraveled on the bullpen after that, and they lost 11-0. And even against Texas, I know Texas does have some offense, and they can pack a punch, but 5 1/3, 8 hits, 5 earned runs. Are you a little concerned at this very moment about Kevin Gausman, or is this just a stretch that he's going through and he's totally going to be fine?
Kevin Gausman right now is the exact reason why I want them to hurry up and just clinch something.
Yes.
Because if they let's say they clinch a spot in the next couple of weeks, there's how many, you said there's 15 games. Let's say they clinch something in a playoff appearance of some sort in 7 games.
Sure.
That is all that much more important to somebody like Gausman, where they can get him the right rest and get him that nice ease into the playoffs. Because right now I'm wondering how much of it is fatigue, or they've found something out that I would rather him be working on whatever those changes are to get over the hurdle behind the scenes rather than in the game. Because then otherwise the secret's out and, he gets lit up by the Yankees or whoever we end up playing. It's just how it is. But to that point, I think he is a good case in point on why it'd be really nice just to watch the offense truck everybody over the next few days here and have that wild card berth, at least in its minimalist form, to go forward with. If we continue getting better to the point where we're obviously still holding on to the first wild card spot or that division, it's only that much different, or that much better, I mean. But I really think that he is the exact reason why you need that little bit of extra rest for that Orioles series that you were talking about a few minutes ago.
Tyson?
He's such an interesting pitcher too, because he's constantly gone deep into games this year. Some days the splitter's on, sometimes some days the opposing team just isn't swinging at it. Like, he's such an interesting pitcher. And one thing I was going to look up actually was his stats last year, because he had a great season. And then he also, at the second part and later half of the second half of the season, he had some outings, same thing where,
it was actually about this time of year with the Giants last year.
Because he had a couple outings he had one outing in July, he had 6 earned runs. He had one in August where he gave up 5 earned runs. And then he had a few to end September, October, where 3 earned runs, 4 earned runs, 4 earned runs, which isn't terrible, because if you still go 6-7 innings, nothing wrong with that. And this Blue Jays offense can give you that many earned runs. But I think definitely, kind of to your point too, Craig, like, him and Manoah are two pitchers that you're like, hey, we know you're a 1 and 2. Like, we need to win a ball game. You're a go-to guys. And that's, I don't want to say expected, because obviously that's just,
nothing's guaranteed as a game.
Nothing's guaranteed, right? So, but if you're gonna, say who do you want to go, those are your 2 guys, right? Now, do you want to get them rested and ready for that? Possibly. Or maybe Manoah's like, I like my routine. I'm pitching, the most innings I've done in a very long time.
Yep.
Let me keep going. And maybe you say, yep, go ahead. Or, because even you look back at 2020, Ryu was like, I need to do game 2. But we knew that from him. We knew the extra day of rest usually benefits him. It didn't that time, but that's the risk of it, right? And I think with Gausman, if he does have that, the one, maybe they push him back with one of the off days or something. There's ways you can tinker with it without taking him out, but still giving him that start. Or even if you clinch and you're like, go out there, throw 4 innings. You want to try your splitter, doing something, give it a try. You're facing the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Go try, right? And obviously you still want to win those games if you're in the division hunt. Maybe you don't put him in that day, but he'll be someone to watch over those next couple starts and see, is it something maybe he's fading, or is it, that was just Tampa had him that day. Two home runs like that. Did they have him that day? Who knows?
It could be just as much that as you're talking about advanced scouting more than anybody. See, that's the Rays in a nutshell. I also, to that point about you said about how they shuffle that workload, I would say that to your point, that Gausman's more in the Ryu category and Manoah's no, I'm pitching.
Yeah, you're not taking this ball from me. You are not taking this ball.
I think they're going to be hard pressed to even pushing him to a 6th day without an off day in there. Actually, get something going for the end of the season.
That was part of that impressive week, right? Like, he wasn't feeling well, and he still came out that second game. And I think it was the quote after the game. He's like, "My job is not to feel well. My job is to go out and pitch." And it's like, oh,
I know.
Then he's channeling his inner Michael Jordan, on a flu game. I think he made that comparison at one point too, but he was being very comedic about it because he's not, Michael Jordan's, Alek Manoah might someday be the god of pitching, but right now he's still our best
sophomore season.
What you're saying is, if the Blue Jays win the World Series and they did a Netflix documentary, there'll be an episode on the shit game for Alek Manoah, where he overcomes his stomach bug and goes out and pitches a gem as a turning point.
This will be like the Kurt Schilling bloody sock thing. So go down Blue
Cole
Jays
wouldn't
floor.
go past the Audi sign, and I took
yes,
yes,
exactly.
How many? So now we're into that's 2 moments that he's already proven that he's a man amongst boys, I guess.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Well, look, let's look ahead. That was a very good homestand, successful one. It was a winning one, and that's all you can ask for when you're at home. They now go on the road, play 2 against the Phillies, and then 4 at the Trop. We can save that for the end when we do our record predictions and picks to click. I think we're all in agreement. We're like 90% sure that 6 games in 15, or I guess 17 for the Orioles, is going to be pretty damn hard to overcome to even tie the Blue Jays the rest of the way. I mean, look, the Blue Jays have the 2nd most wins in the American League since the All-Star break. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that when the offense has a series like they do against the Angels back in August, but it's true. Right behind Houston. So I don't think they're going to collapse and totally flame out. So I'm feeling pretty good, but we'll say 90%. With that 90%, Tyson, this is another debate, kind of like the Jose Barrios Ross Stripling thing that's always going to happen between now and when the playoffs roll around for Blue Jays fans is, where do you want to finish if it's not the American League East title and winning the division? Obviously, I think we might all be in agreement that we want wildcard one and home field advantage, but there is also an equally good path going to play Cleveland, even though that's on the road, because if you win that, which you should over an inferior opponent, you still get to bypass the Astros and play the Yankees, who have struggled a lot since acquiring Frankie Montas at the deadline, and just even going back before that.
Lack of Montas now.
Thing. Exactly. So,
that worked out strangely okay, didn't it?
The home field advantage, or are you preferring the Cleveland route a little bit?
I think, personally, I think I would love the home field advantage just because playoff baseball in Toronto we've seen can be an absolute gong show, right? Like it can be absolutely just electric. We know the Blue Jays play well at home, and just playing in front of your home crowd is that, that extra boost that I think you kind of need in a playoff series. But at the same time, it's hard to fathom not playing, let's say, like we know would be a weaker team, right? Because we know the Mariners and the Rays have been good this year. The Mariners own the season series on the Blue Jays, although they were going through that slump when that happened. And I think for the Blue Jays, it almost seems like you kind of want to be number one or you want to be number three, right? You kind of want to avoid the number two because you're either playing Tampa at the Trop, which is not ideal, or you're playing Seattle in their home barn. The only benefit really being you're going to get a ton of people from West Canada that are hopefully coming over and supporting the team.
It might feel like a home game.
It could, but that's not a guarantee, right?
Correct.
And so at the same time, if you get first, you also potentially have that added benefit that Robbie Ray can't come over the border. Mind you, things may shift over time, and Robbie Ray might get the vaccine tomorrow, right? And we don't know that, and so that's not something you want to guarantee or bank on that happening because the Mariners also still have two to three very good pitchers, right? Gilbert and Castillo. So I think with the Blue Jays, you definitely the added disadvantage about playing Cleveland is they got three starters who are just fantastic, and we've seen that, right? And
I don't feel confident with that at all.
that's kind of the hit and miss, right? Because we played the Rays. McClanahan is great too, and they got a couple other good starters there. So you kind of got to pick your poison, and playing at home against another team, I think, gives you that not necessary advantage, but added advantage, even if you have to play Cleveland on the road because their starters are so electric, right? You would just hope if you can get a hold of them early, then you're smooth sailing. But we've seen in the past that that's not a guarantee. And so I think playing at home, having that home field advantage, we know the split stats for quite a few of these pitchers are better at home. The Jordan Romano light show obviously didn't, first blown save at home, and we're in September. And for a closer, that's pretty good. Elite, that's still pretty elite closer status, right? For the season. So I would go definitely. You want the home field advantage. You want wild card number one. Also for the bias that I can try and buy playoff tickets. So
yes,
there it is. Keyword try probably. There's that.
Frank, are you in agreement with Tyson on where you want them to finish?
Dude, I want bat flips and freaking parrot walks in my own backyard. I don't want I don't want to go do it in Seattle. But I do think we remember back in 2015 and 2016, and those home games for the Blue Jays were the catalyst to everything that we got to see in those playoff runs. And we got to take it to school against the Rangers both times. But those next series were always very challenging and complicated and good series. I don't know if those would have been the same series going into KC in 2015 without all that we went through and having that final home seal of approval in the division series. I unfortunately, Kansas City had it that year. I can't say much more about it than that. They were good luck touching that pitching. That was the whole problem. And it was the old adage in baseball that good pitching usually beats good hitting. We have great hitting, so that's a little bit of a different tip into it. I do think we need to come up with some more timely hitting. But it's something about Cleveland and them having just enough ways to get an offense going and having that pitching, to your point, Tyson, is scary to me. I'm not as completely scared of the Seattle Mariners pitching just because it is, like you said, after those three guys. And I don't think they did enough to really reinforce that bullpen. They're still relying on their grown youth to really hammer down a game, which is, don't get me wrong, very, very good. But do you expect to get the same thing you got from like Andrew Muniz in the playoffs? Does he get into the headspace thing of the game gets bigger than him? If that happens, I want him to be getting that in our arena where the fans are going to go nuts and Jays Nation is louder than all hell and, causes 4 errors in a inning for Elvis Andrews and that kind of stuff. I think that spells success for the Blue Jays, is that home field advantage. And I'm not upset about the alternative, but if they can have any control over it, that first wild card spot does cement the Jays Nation having a good role in this playoff race.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wonder if a way to kind of frame the thinking over the next couple of weeks before we get there is who would be the best matchup for them, and that throw out home field, on the road, wherever it is, because it can be a combination of any 3 or 4 outcomes at this point. Playing Cleveland, the only way you play Cleveland is if you are on the road, and in wildcard 3, but you could be at Tampa, you could be at Seattle, or either or it could be home to you. So there's 5 possible outcomes. And if you go through and rank those really quick, when I was thinking about this question, I'm going to ask the both of you. I think my personal rankings would be obviously wildcard 1 at home to Seattle because of the Robbie Ray vaccination question, and that puts him out of that series. Tyson, you made a very good point. We don't know. He may have gotten his vaccine. I mean, what Merrifield did when he wasn't, and we knew he wasn't when Kansas City comes here.
And could Canada,
especially when they can forecast it?
Yes,
could Canada change the law over the next couple of weeks, and that's a hot topic right now.
It is a right can. That app might be going away. You never know. The vaccine requirements might be abolished in time for the playoffs, but with the uncertainty and not knowing, I would definitely rank my number 1 matchup would be at home to Seattle, just because you might be able to get rid of Robbie Ray in that series. I think number 2 then goes to wildcard 3 when you go to Cleveland. I know their pitching staff scares me. Tristan McKenzie, Shane Bieber, so on and so forth. Very scary.
Plus the bullpen.
Plus the bullpen, exactly. Emmanuel Clase at the end is filthy. And then in any combination, way, shape, or form, I know we just took 3 out of 5 from the Rays, but I do not want to play the Rays.
Especially in the Trop.
It's a possible thing I want. If it's the Rays, it's at home, but even then, I still don't want to play them at home because Shane McClanahan is all but a guaranteed 1 win for Tampa, and the way you win that series is by beating them 2 or 3 times. I think you could sweep Seattle if it's in Toronto. I think you could sweep Cleveland if you go to Cleveland. But I don't think there's any chance that you sweep the Rays when you play them at home at the Chop with McClanahan going. So I pose this question back to you. Craig, start with you. Rank your top 3 outcomes and matchups of all the possibilities that the Blue Jays could have. And Tyson, you'll be going after him.
I guess grab my notepad.
I know, right? It's like I got too many computers going on. I don't have anywhere to write anything. After this, go ahead.
No, I said rapid fire. Let's go. Fire them off.
Okay. I was just going to say, I'm curious to see how we would play in that series against the one that they swept us in Seattle. I honestly would like to see how that looks facing this team the way it is now. We were literally, nothing was going right at all that whole weekend, going from there in LA and everything. It was just the peak low point of how the team could play at all this year. That team is maybe going to be on their heels a little bit, and then get slammed by the way we really play baseball. So I'd be curious to see if that would be my favorite one right now. And then very close after that is the Rays and the why am I blanking on the third team now? Yeah, Cleveland. So I give you a wash between the 2 of those. Maybe the Rays I'd rather face just slightly right now because of how banged up they are, but they've been getting healthier over the last few weeks. The fact that Franco's back and all that kind of stuff like that. McClanahan's back. They're looking a little bit more like the team we played weeks back.
Yeah.
Not the one we just played.
Exactly. Tyson, where are you at with your rankings?
I agree with you on Jays versus Seattle. And I think one of the reasons, too, is because they got a bit of a younger team. And you kind of hope the Blue Jays playoff atmosphere kind of, I don't want to say scares them, but, gets them out of their comfort zone. especially
It's definitely not going to help them.
Yeah, especially like I said, let's hypothetically even say Ray is able to pitch there, right? Like Blue Jays fans are just going to be all over him. Like so, it's just you get that home field.
Oh, now
advantage.
you get vaccinated. I see how you are.
And then yeah, and then I would say next would be for me is Jays playing Tampa at home.
Yep.
And I say that just because same thing, even though Shane McClanahan's fantastic, younger pitcher, hasn't really, he's had, I don't know if he's had postseason experience. I'd have to look that up. But it's the same thing. And you got Wander Franco, you got a bit of a younger team. They are feisty, but we also just took 3 of 2 of them. Right. Yep. And I think that goes a bit of a long way with how, we could play against them going there. I then have Jays at Cleveland because I think with that, the Cleveland plays the small ball, but the Blue Jays have a better defense than we've seen in previous years. And I think with, they got to face their pitching, but at the same time, younger squad, except for, Bieber. Bieber's been around the block a few times. So you could kind of hopefully get that. Jays in at Seattle, hopefully the Western Canada shows up, and the same thing, the younger audience there. And then I just want to avoid Tampa and Tropicana at all costs.
Yes.
If the Blue Jays make the playoffs and don't win another game, and I hear again that the Blue Jays haven't won a playoff game since 2016, I'm going to lose my mind. And then if I had to pick again, number one is getting the first round bye in the AL East and playing whoever comes down that way.
That'd be the easy, obvious.
Exactly.
I don't know. That one's like
they're playing the lower seed in that too, because the way the records would line up too. Cleveland is not going to be getting out of that spot. Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you saw the agenda or something posted in the chat, because that's where we're going next. It is not done. It really isn't done. They're 5.5 back. Both teams don't play tonight, so no game will be ground or no game will be lost by either team. The only teams that can gain ground, the Mariners, who are going to win today, so they'll gain half a game. And the Orioles playing Detroit could gain half a game, or they could lose half a game and go back to 6.5 and make up for half that game they lost yesterday. So Tyson, the very simple question to you is, what? Obviously, the gap can't grow between the Blue Jays and the Yankees between now and when they play them, but 5.5, even with 3 games left, does seem like it'll be quite insurmountable. Last year, what was it when that series opened up, the last homestand of the year? When they hosted the Yankees, they were 3 back of the Yankees for a wild card spot. They lost one
around there.
Yeah, around there. Actually, I think it was 2, because they could have gotten down. And anyways, regardless, 5.5 with 3 left against the Yankees at home against Toronto. Obviously, you want to get that gap as close as possible for when you play them there, because then you can make it super interesting. Like if the gap's 4 and you take 2, then you could get that down to 3 with playing the Red Sox and the Orioles. So what would you put the Blue Jays' chances of being able to sneak out a division title? And what gap do you need to see between them and the Yankees to make it really realistic before that game next week, Monday?
See, with that, I think, because they got to face the Phillies and the Rays, right? And it's going to be, and they're in Tropicana, right? So that's going to be a tough time. Philly. Yeah, but Philly, if I remember correctly, Philly's not, I don't want to say scuffling, but they had some, Noah Syndergaard wasn't performing. Bryce Harper's in I wouldn't say slump, but he's
coming out of it.
He's slowly. Let's say hopefully slowly. But, and they gotta face some tough pitchers in Philly. They gotta face a tough atmosphere in Tampa. I think over the next week or so, obviously you got to have that advantage. You got to take these next 2 series, whether it be, obviously you got to. I think it's because they only play 2 games against the Phillies. You got to sweep them, and then you need to take the majority of the Rays series, because not only is that key for your standings, that's key for your momentum going into face the Yankees, right? And that's where we kind of have that conversation, because the Yankees, they got to face the Red Sox, they got to face who else? They got to face the Pirates.
They're playing the Pirates tomorrow. Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles, and Rangers.
I'm hoping O'Neal Cruz has the game of his life, right? And I think,
and he very well might. That kid is insane.
Yeah. But I think with that, so many people right now are focused on the Aaron Judge MVP as well as his home runs. So, hopefully, he's, yeah, exactly. He's like Alex Rodriguez. He doesn't hit it for so long, and during that time he starts struggling, and the Blue Jays can capitalize on that, because we know that the Yankees haven't been as dominant as they were at the start of the season. But at the same time, we know the Blue Jays can easily turn September into just this absolute dominant performance. The problem is they have a tougher task than the Yankees do. And we still know that, they're still the Yankees. They can turn things around and become dominant, and doing that against the Pirates and the Red Sox is a great opportunity, right? So I think it goes back to what I said earlier. The Blue Jays need to take care of their own business. And then when you go to face the Yankees, if you, I think within, I would think you got to be within the three to 4 game area. If you're not within that 3 to 4 game area, you got a real uphill climb. You got a real uphill climb because the Yankee schedule is easier, but you still have to face some of these AL East teams, and we know that these AL East teams can give you a lot of trouble. And the Rangers, are they going to be tapped out by that point and say, here's Jack Leiter, right? Like,
yeah.
we want to see
to that point. I honestly hope they do something like that and like go fucking Wreck-It Ralph on this. Going, I'm gonna wreck it.
Right. So I think the key for the Blue Jays is when you face the Yankees, 3 or 4 games.
Yep.
And then you basically, I don't want to say sweep because that's obviously super tough against the Yankees, but then the same thing. You need to take the series. You need to keep just chipping away, and then hopefully you can do something against the Red Sox, and then hopefully when you get to Baltimore, same thing. They're tapped out and they just want to see what all their prospects can do. Right? You don't need Aguilar going out there and taking out at bats. You can put some of the younger folks in. Right? So
sure.
I think that's the mark.
Yeah, I agree with you. Craig, are you in agreement with Tyson?
Yeah, the division would be amazing, but I think their chances right now are purely 50-50 at the best.
Yeah.
And I don't care what the sports writers say the chances are, because the real metric is probably like they have like a 10% chance of stealing the division from the Yankees. But Yankees have been slumping. They haven't been hitting on all cylinders. I was trying to find their ridiculous, horrible record since the All-Star break, and the only one I can find is as accurate as September 3rd, when they were 15-25 at that time. It hasn't gotten much better, so it's still way more losses than it is wins. They were 6-4 over their last 10, I saw, but to that point, it's riding Donaldson and Judge right now. And we know Donaldson's not the same guy we saw in 2015, 2016. Judge is batting leadoff for them, so those home runs are more solo home runs than they are anything of late. So there's enough wild cards in that situation there for the Blue Jays to sneak in and steal it. But they have to do what they're doing against some of really stiff competition, while the Yankees don't have as technically a hard competition. So not unsurmountable, but not, we're going to find out really how well the baseball gods are shining on Toronto in the next few weeks, guys.
Yeah. If it's any more than 5.5, what it is now going into that, it's pretty much done. Even if it is 5.5, you have to sweep it. And as you said, Tyson, that'll be a tall task to do. So get it as close as you can before you play them next.
They can get it within 3 before next week. That would be 100%. Slightly insane. And then I would say that 50-50 sounds more accurate.
Yeah, I would even tilt that maybe even 60-40 in their favor.
It's going to take the wind out of their sails.
For sure.
Yankees Nation's going to be freaking out.
Yes, we all love
they are already.
Freak out. Quick question for the both of you. I saw this on Twitter the other day before we get off to Monday Night Football. But somebody pointed out, as a Mariners fan right now, the gap between you and the Orioles is 4 games. You have, 22, 23-year playoff drought since 2001. You haven't made the playoffs. I know everything is going very, very well for the Mariners right now. They have a very soft finish to their calendar, but is there a sliver of doubt, if you're a Mariners fan, in either of your heads that you could collapse it and somehow that streak just continues and maybe Baltimore sneaks in?
I think Julio Rodriguez carries that team on his back and they make it. If that happens. I think they're talented enough that they're in a situation where I think they have enough firepower, they have enough depth where could they lose a few games and the Orioles make it close? Yeah, but they also, they have to face each other one more time, if I remember correctly. And it's one of those. I think Seattle has enough momentum on their side. I think they did enough at the deadline. Yeah, the bullpen, like you said, Greg, not the biggest and greatest of updates. Yeah, but you know what? We've seen young players absolutely dominate the playoffs. And one of the big reasons Atlanta had such a good postseason last year was because they picked up Jorge Soler, right? Like, and it's these random one-offs who just have these fantastic postseasons. And if they have the same thing at the end of the season here, right, with anything that they had there, Castillo keeps pitching well. I think I don't want to say a lock, but they definitely, even if they go a little bit, if they lose a few games over the next little bit here, I don't know if the Orioles have enough in the tank to do it. I think this the three teams you see now in the wild card, or at least making the playoffs in the wild card, maybe maybe the Blue Jays take the division, right? But at least kind of the four teams you have now is who I think is going to be there. Where they stand is the big question.
For sure. Craig, same thing. Are you in agreement with that? Or is there a sliver?
I'm in agreement with it, but I could see why Seattle Mariners fans are freaking out, and same to that point, the Rays fans, and just to be this guy, because guess what team I'm watching tonight and hoping, praying to God that something finally happens in the Buffalo Bills. I know what they're feeling when, and as Blue Jays fans go, they haven't been to the playoffs in a long damn time. Is everything against them, and they've been this close recently. Robinson Cano was on that team a few years ago, that before he had all the roids and all the other mess that it's been Robinson Cano since. But that year they missed it by like a few games. It was like us last year, that's what are the baseball gods angry with them? That's the flip side of our coin here. Something has been funky, and as far as Rays and Mariners fans, I'd be sitting there going, freaking out. What if? It's that what if until it happens, you don't believe it. And same thing with Blue Jays, and like I said, as being a Bills fan, until it finally happened.
Yeah,
it was like, okay, now we can go. It's Goose Fraba.
That magic number.
Yes, exactly.
Correct.
Craig,
because in 2015 we didn't think it was going to happen. We were sitting there at the All-Star game, sub 500, all over again.
Price.
Who was finally retiring after all this.
No, he's not.
Oh, is he?
He went out and
Who else said that?
He bought, because it was Nightingale who said, I think released a report, and Price was like, that's not true. I'm currently uncertain, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if he shuts it down.
I think so too.
To that point, I'm surprised nobody's taking a risk on letting him just come air it out of the bullpen.
He's having a great year in the bullpen. Have you seen his numbers? He's having a great year.
Keep doing that. He could be a great left-handed bullpen arm for another 3 years.
Just not at his contract rate.
Correct. Just not at that kind of crazy money.
Stay away from that. Craig, if the Bills can find a franchise quarterback, the Mariners can make the playoffs. That's what I'm going to say.
Exactly. There it is. And they found their franchise guy in Ken Griffey 2.0.
Yes.
Julio Rodriguez. That kid is something insane.
Problems.
He's something else. Well, Craig, I want to turn it over to you for picks to click and record predictions. I know the last month and a bit pretty messy with the inconsistencies across the board with who's joining, who's not joining the show. But
I think I want to crown a winner tonight.
Yeah. Might happen.
Because I'm not going to be able to keep this going with random guests every week.
Yeah, exactly. Or we just say, you know what, everybody wins and be very happy.
Everyone gets a trophy.
Well, then you have a horrible, it's like you're giving your trophy up before I have a chance to give it to you, guy.
If you take it today, I'll take it.
Yeah. So the last week that we had picks to click here, and I'm just more or less going to say this cumulatively over the last 2 weeks. This is what the picks would have been. I had Matt Chapman. Chris had Teoscar Hernandez. Adam had Kevin Biggio because it's his boy. And then Brendan, you had Alek Manoah. And to that point, you were already winning by the skin of your teeth with 6 wins to all of our 5s. Out of that group, I'm sorry to say that none of those other guys, I think, came over across and touched that in the last 2 weeks. And Alek Manoah has the flu game of his life and all that kind of stuff. So, Brendan, I'm going to let you be that guy that says, I was this year's 2022 pick the click champion.
Thought that. Of 2022. Fantastic. Well, Craig, I know you'll continue that in some way, shape, or form moving forward as we get a little bit closer to the playoffs with random guests and whatnot. Do you want to do it tonight, or what? What do you think? Or do you want to take a week to reset it?
I think I got to find something else new to fund on end of show, and I've been doing the last couple weeks. When we have guests, I've been finding fun things about them on the internet. I don't know if you guys saw last week. I had Ian Hunter on, and when I was talking with Ian, I found one of his more recent articles was about the random weird stuff that's on the Toronto Blue Jays auction website.
Oh, yeah.
You looked into this? Brendan, did you see any of this stuff?
No, I didn't.
They have like pieces of the old video board. They have dirt from the return game from after post-COVID Toronto Blue Jays. I can't remember what the third one was, but I was like, oh, it was a baseballs that weren't used, but they were in play for a no-hitter that was thrown against the Blue Jays. Justin Verlander.
Oh, was it Verlander? I thought it was Paxton.
And they were only a mere $150 a piece.
I saw someone. They did the baseball, like random baseball or whatever. I think they were like $75, and someone got Jacob Wagga's pack. And they were like, and they did like a thing on Twitter being like, guess who it is? Like, guess who's in this? And no one got it.
Yeah,
It's been a few years.
People forget that Wagga's pack was a good farmhand.
It still blows my mind if you had a couple 7-inning gems. Like I think he went 7 innings at Dodger Stadium, and he did one against the Yankees too. And then
my favorite is Thomas Pannone and his immaculate inning.
Yeah,
there was that.
He's the last one to have an immaculate inning for the Blue Jays, and Steve Delabar was the other. I can't remember. There's a third one. I can't remember.
Two highlights in Blue Jays.
Steve.
Fandom. Go raise the bar on that one right there.
Exactly.
Well, to that point,
Greg.
Yeah. So to that point in the game whole thing, I guess would you like me to? And I couldn't find anything fun with you, Tyson. So I dug back into the fact that this is something that most Blue Jays fans wouldn't know that you wrote an article on recently, and the fact that the Dunedin Blue Jays actually won the division that they play in for the Florida State League. You wrote an article on that. I figured I'd give you a chance to, break that news with the Blue Jays fans, other than the fact that they actually won their first game, I guess, too, in the next round.
Oh, the championship series? I was going to say I haven't looked yet because when I wrote the article, they hadn't posted when the championship series was going. But basically, they're playing Fort Myers, the Mighty Muscles, and they won the.
So this is that game, actually. I'm sorry, it says game 2, but I can't find the score for the first game.
So they won the first game. It was Peyton. They have a lot of the 2022 draft class on that roster this year. And they've just been outstanding. Like they've just been fantastic. And Peyton Williams was leading the way, their first baseman. Dowdy and Kasevich there, they were doing great. They had a lot of different pitchers in there as well. They won the first one. They lost the second one, and then they won a barn burner in the third one. It was 3-1, and there was like no runs after the fifth inning. And Ben Baggett got 2 saves in there, so it was fantastic. It's good to see the 2022 draft class playing, single A ball and doing well, like during not only in the season because they were playing well in the season, and then doing well in the playoffs too, right? So it's good to see.
And in the midst of that, they actually got their first. What I was just reading too is also their first playoff win at home since 2011, which they think through your Blue Jays history. They've won a championship more recent than 2011 in that league. That year, because of the hurricanes and stuff that were coming through Toronto, they didn't play those home games for that championship in their own stadium. They played it at the joint facility so they could hope to keep everybody together to do that. So that was the team that had Vladdy, Bo, Biggio, everybody, and then they went up to the next year and won the Eastern League Championship with New Hampshire, so on and so forth. John Schneider.
Big league level.
Yeah, big league manager.
Yes, exactly. Any final closing comments for the evening, gentlemen? I think that sums up the week that was in Blue Jays baseball.
We got to give Tyson his shameless self-promoting for the Jays Journal website right now.
Come view our stuff, pretty much. We have a good group going. We're firing all cylinders with the playoffs coming up. Myself, co-editor with very talented Chris Henderson. He's been doing this for years. Fantastic. We have a lot of really great writers and a lot of great stuff coming out. So definitely give us a look as we're heading into not only the playoffs and the regular season, but also in the off season, because we're always churning the rumor mill and giving your opinion, even though you didn't ask for it. So,
and now you all have this voice that you can do on this show and come on here.
What do you mean by that? What do you think?
Remember, it's that whole thing that we're like officially part of your team now. We're just this, redheaded stepchild nonsense going on over here. But it's more Redbeard.
No, your guys' podcasts are there as well. They show up on every article as part of the advertising.
There you go.
That I've seen at least.
Excellent. Craig, any
We
final
have beer
comments?
money here.
Craig, are the Bills going to win tonight?
Yes, they need to exercise their demons against the Titans.
Yes,
It's going to happen at home.
Titans have had their troubles the last couple of years, so it's about time Buffalo pays it back to Tennessee.
On the flip of that, Derrick Henry is on my fantasy football team, so if that's the way I lose, that's the way I lose.
I need Josh Allen to have a terrible game because it's a little close.
You're playing him.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. Tyson, thanks for hopping on with Craig and I.
Of course.
If you didn't see the news, it's not goodbye for me. It is see you later. I will be here moving forward, more so as a guest instead of a more permanent fixture. Craig, I can't say enough good things about the last 4 years of doing this with you. Well, we started in, I think, permanently maybe towards the tail end of 2017. So I guess closer to 5 years now. Picked it up. Obviously, we added Adam and Chris to the team over the last couple of years. Have had some great guests on the show like Tyson, and it really was something during the pandemic in 2020 and a little bit in 2021 where this was the main event every single week. That was always something to look forward to on the calendar. And very proud of what we've done the last couple of years, but hey, I'm not leaving permanently. I will be back on. You know what? When as I said before the show, Craig, I'll hop back on, especially if they make a playoff run. I'll definitely want to try that.
You got these fair weather podcasters now, not just fans, It's
yes.
But to that point, dude, it's been fun, Brendan. It's been a pleasure, and you kind of helped me build this up. Originally, obviously, like you said, we had everybody else dive into it. It has been a pleasure and a highlight of my week every week, having you and Adam and Chris to chit chat with. Obviously, any week we do get you on, and obviously we get our other friends like Tyson and Chris and everybody else on this show. It's going to be a wonderful, good time still. Still going to be the congregating point. I just have to do more work now, all on my own, because it was nice having a break every 3 weeks, letting you guys run a show and going like that. But to that point, Brendan, I couldn't have been happier to have a partner for this for 315 or some odd episodes.
That's wild, man.
That's wild.
Right?
That's
fantastic.
It does fly. It definitely does fly. But no, I appreciate you, Craig and Tyson, for hopping on. I will close it off, my final show hosting for a little while, by saying listen on, well, I guess Jay's Journal, the official podcast of Jay's Journal. It'll be posted there. You'll be able to see that. Anywhere you get your podcasting pleasures from, take a listen, rate, subscribe. Craig, I know you'll continue great things here, get great guests, and continue to provide excellent coverage of our Toronto Blue Jays. Let's end this show how we always do, with 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Woo! Let's go Blue Jays. Take the division.
Yes.